Almost Heroes, hell yeah! Okay, so rather than make this short look series the most boring movies I watched that day, let's talk about one of my favorite films. This is 1998's Almost Heroes. For those of you who haven't heard of it, Almost Heroes is a comedy starring Matthew Perry and Chris Farley about a group of misadventurers who set out to map the Northwest and, more importantly, do it before Lewis and Clark. Basically, it's a road trip comedy with historical humor, and it's one of the funniest movies ever. Look, you can't just sit down and have Almost Heroes on in the background or something. You gotta make an event out of it. Like, in the middle of the summer, invite some friends over for a barbecue, then watch it together. Have a nice cold soda, or whatever. This is gonna be like the best evening ever. There really isn't that much plot. A lot of it is set pieces as they're traveling and throwing whatever joke they can at the wall and seeing what sticks, but it absolutely works. Chris Farley is hilarious as always, Matthew Perry is a great foil as the uptight Leslie Edwards, and all of the supporting characters have at least one laugh-out-loud moment. Eugene Levy as the Frenchman was a particular highlight.
Fontenot, please greet this man in his native tongue.
Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Why do I laugh? You see, of the hundreds of languages that I speak fluent, this is not one of them.
One of my favorite supporting characters is Pratt, a strange fellow who is a bit indescribable unless you've seen the movie. His best scenes involve his interactions with Bidwell, an unfortunate man who has every terrible thing that could possibly happen to him on this trip.
Look at me! I'm going to make an experiment. Hello, Bidwell? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Pratt.
It works.
Well, of course it works. He's standing right... Let's get some sleep.
And yes, I said Matthew Perry was good in this. He's mostly the straight man, but they give him a lot of material to work with, and he's perfect for the part.
What do you do with your leisure time? Leisure time. You know, time for yourself, where you don't have to work. Leisure... Never mind.
In order to give the movie a bit more exciting of a climax, they have a group of Spaniards they fight led by Hidalgo, a crazy bastard who's really self-conscious about his hair. Then, of course, there's Chris Farley. He's at his best in this movie. If you've seen any of his films, you pretty much know what you're in for, but he really does steal the show every scene he's in. Some of the movie's most quotable moments come from him, and I couldn't do this review without mentioning the greatest gag in the movie. At this point, he has to get an eagle's egg to save Leslie's life. It goes about as well as expected. Of course, there are some misses with the jokes. The movie isn't perfect. And suffice it to say, if you don't dig Chris Farley's humor, this probably isn't the film for you. So why am I giving this movie so much praise? Almost Heroes is really sentimental to me. I remember seeing it when it came to theaters. It was the middle of the summer and our car was out of commission, so we walked to the Dollar Theater and saw it as a double feature with Quest for Camelot. I was little then, so I didn't really care about Almost Heroes. I wanted to see the cartoon. It wasn't until later that I really came to appreciate the movie. Whenever it was on, my family had to watch it. To this day, I can quote the thing endlessly with my brother. This has become a running gag in my house.
You got your brother to eat sheep dung. Yes, that's a very amusing story.
Tell him the ending. That's the best part.
Oh, yeah. And to be completely honest, sir, I have no brother. It was me. I ate sheep shit. I swear, I did.
It's one of the only movies that will make us laugh every joke, every time. It's a great thing to be able to share. At the risk of becoming too somber in a comedy review, I do think I should address something. Whenever Almost Heroes comes up in conversation, it will, without fail, be followed by one comment. It's a shame Chris Farley died. Almost Heroes was his last movie, and it will always be known as the last thing he did. And for that reason, this film will always have a slightly tragic ring to it. It's nothing to do with any faults in the film itself. but it's something that stays in your head when you watch it. This was his swan song. There are a lot of fantastic performers who have passed away, but Chris Farley, he's the one whose death always gets a mention. And the reason this happens is because, well, he was so beloved. I've met very few people who don't like the guy. And even more tragic about him is that he wanted to do more than just goofy comedy. He wanted to do dramatic roles, to expand as a performer, to do even more, even better things. And he wasn't just the loud-mouthed fat guy who fell over stuff. He always added a sincerity and heart to his performances that made you believe in him. This is truthful for Almost Heroes as well. It's hilarious, yes, but you want these characters to succeed because you believe in them. It's funny because you care. Why does Chris Farley's passing always get a mention? Because he went out with such a great legacy behind him. And so, I'd like to ask that instead of dwelling on what could have been, we remember with fondness the things that were. And for me, that's the memories associated with Almost Heroes. It's a movie that always makes me feel good. If a performer can create something that makes people happy, that touches lives, then that's a legacy worth leaving behind. And that's all we can ask for.